I sat in the corner of the airport lounge, my boarding pass clutched loosely in my hand, pretending to read a travel magazine. I barely glanced at the hum of distant conversations, the clatter of luggage, the automatic doors sliding open and closed. Everything felt like a buffer between me and the storm I'd left behind. 2 hours ago, I had bought a one-way ticket, not out of whim, but necessity. My father's text replayed in my mind with sharp clarity. "Cover the debt, or I burn your career." The words weren't loud, but they had the weight of a threat I'd felt creeping over me for years. A family legacy of entitlement and expectation now resting squarely on my shoulders. And my sister, so casually reckless, so used to sliding by without consequence, had dragged me into it. I'd stared at the phone for a long minute after the message came through. There was no panic, no flailing desperation, just a bitter, quiet assessment. They thought I'd bend. They thought I'd pay. They had always underestimated me. I remembered the conversation at home, my father's voice rising while mine stayed low and measured. "It's your responsibility too. You're part of this family." He'd always believed that fear and obligation would dictate my choices, but I'd learned early that restraint could be more powerful than noise. I didn't answer then. I didn't need to. At the airport, I opened my laptop, connecting to the accounts, tracing movements, cross-referencing transfers. Every step was methodical, precise. No dramatic gestures, no shouting into the void. I set everything quietly, a trap with no immediate visible effect. It felt strange, this calm in the midst of family chaos, but it was a calm I had earned through years of being underestimated. I thought of my sister in that moment, not with hatred exactly, but with a kind of resigned disappointment. I remembered her laughter when we were children, when consequences were never really hers to bear. Now the stakes were higher, and I had to step beyond the role they'd always assigned me, the obedient, forgiving child. Midnight passed unnoticed. I barely slept, my thoughts looping through rules, transfers, authorizations, silence and calculation, my companions. There was a strange satisfaction in knowing that the next morning I would watch them face consequences, not through spectacle, but through inevitable factual action. When morning came, I received the first confirmation. Bank officials had arrived at my family home. My father and sister were being escorted out handcuffed, not because of any flashy confrontation I had staged, but because I had quietly set the system in motion. From a distance, I watched the authority act, precise and unambiguous. Their power, once looming over me like a shadow, had shifted without fanfare. I did not smile. I did not celebrate. There was no triumph in yelling, no gloating over failure. The satisfaction was subtle, almost imperceptible, a quiet acknowledgement of regained agency, the kind that leaves you feeling steady rather than elated. My career remained untouched, my boundaries intact, and yet the lingering bitterness was unavoidable. Family ties had fractured, trust had been lost, and the cost of self-preservation was a loneliness I could not ignore. By the time I boarded the plane, I had compartmentalized the events into a strange, cold clarity. I had acted decisively, not out of vengeance, but out of necessity. They had misjudged me again. They had assumed I would comply, that I would flinch. But I had chosen silence, patience, and precision, and in that quietness, I had won. The hum of the plane's engines was a lullaby for my thoughts. I stared out at the slowly receding city lights, letting the bitterness soften into reflection. Family loyalty had collided with personal boundaries, and I had learned, perhaps too late, that the two are not always compatible. There was no victory in shouting, no peace in revenge, only a quiet recalibration of power, unmistakable and absolute, yet restrained enough to leave me whole. And for now, that was enough.